Okay, starting with number 7 on this one, we're still working on sequences and series. It asked me first to find the common ratio of the geometric sequence. So geometric means that we know we're multiplying by the same number each time. So to get from, let's call this a sub 1 and this one a sub 2. So if a sub 1 is 5 and a sub 2 is 25, then that tells me that we're multiplying by 5 each time. So again, I know I'm multiplying because it's geometric, and then that's going to be my common ratio. So then on part A, they asked me to write out the first 4 terms. Part A, write out the first 4 terms. So I know my first term is 5. They already gave me that one, and they gave me that the second term is 25. So to find the third term, I'm going to multiply 25 by 5. So that's going to give me 125. And 125 times 5 is going to give me 625. So there's the first 4 terms of my sequence. Now we may be able to look at that and be able to find the formula. I'm going to again go ahead and change this into an explicit formula, because again, that's what you'll see more of on the exam. So with my explicit formula with geometric, I'm working with a sub n is equal to, don't need that, a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1 power. All right, so this one's kind of funny because my a sub 1 is 5 and my r value is 5. So I've got a sub n is equal to 5 times 5 to the n minus 1 power. All right, well, since these bases are the same, and this is kind of like having 5 to the first power, I am multiplying my bases, so I'm going to add my exponents here. So that's going to give me a formula then of just 5 to the nth power. And you can kind of see that in your formula right here. This is 5 to the first power, and the second power, and the third power, and the fourth power. So always go back and kind of check and make sure that your formula does match up. All right, on number 8, we're working on which of the following in interval notation represents this inequality right here. So if you want to, you can draw that on a little number line real quick. I'm going to put 1 here and 6 here. And I'm going to have an open circle on 1 because that is just a greater than sign, no equal to. But then since this one has an equal to sign, I'm going to put a closed circle on that. So on my number line, I'm going to shade in between them. I know x is greater than 1 and less than or equal to 6. So that's kind of what we're looking at right there on my number line. All right, so in interval notation then, I'm going to use parentheses with my open circle, and I'm going to use a bracket with my closed circle right there. So I'm looking at 1 and 6 with this notation right here, so B will be the answer. Don't forget also if you use infinities or negative infinities to be sure and use parentheses. All right, on number 9, they give us a pretty big hint here. They tell us to solve by taking the square root of both sides. Before I take the square root, I'm going to try to get just this little quadratic right here by itself. But we don't need to square it out and add everything together. We can just kind of move some things around here. So I'm going to say that x minus 2 squared is equal to, let's go ahead and keep the 4 right there. I'm going to add that 252 over to this side in one step. And then in this step, I'm going to divide by the 4. So I'm going to take my calculator and do 252 divided by 4, and that's going to give me 63. Okay, so now when I have that quadratic completely by itself, this is when I want to take the square root of both sides. So if I take the square root of this side, that's going to give me x minus 2. And then be careful over here. I'm going to take the square root of this. Now this will break up into 9 times 7. So first of all, taking the square root, I need a plus or minus. And then I'm going to take the square root of 9, which gives me 3. And then I'm going to leave that 7 on the inside of my square root. All right, and then to get x by itself, I just need to add that 2 over to the other side. I'm going to put it right here in front. So I'm going to have 2 plus or minus, 3 square roots of 7. So 2 answers there, one with the positive sign and one with the negative sign. There we go, right there. All right, next one we are determining the roots, the nature of the roots. So I'm going to work with my quadratic formula on this. So that's going to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Hang on, Miss Cosette, come back. All right, then we'll keep going. All right, so I'm going to have here that my A value is 4, and my B value is 32, and my C value is 64. All right, so let's plug some of that in, and I'll know by what's happening underneath my square root here about the number of roots that I have. So I'm going to have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared. So let's find out what that is. 32 squared gives me 1024, and then minus 4 times AC. So 4 times 4 times 64, my calculator also gives me 1024. And then I'm going to divide all of that by 2 times a, so 2 times 4 gives me 8. All right, so since this is giving me a 0 right here, I'm going to end up with negative 32 plus or minus 0, which still just gives me negative 32 over 8, which gives me negative 4. But what they're asking here is for the number of roots that I have, and I end up with 1 real root on this one. Very good. On number 11, they're asking me to solve the equation. This one's a quadratic, so I'm going to get everything over onto one side together, and I'm going to go this direction so that my x squared stays positive. All right, and that doesn't look like something that I can factor. There's no factors of 3 and 1 that are going to add together to give me negative 6. So I'm going to instead use quadratic formula again. So same thing as up here. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, so 4 times a is going to be 12, times c is still going to give me 12, so 12 underneath there. And then all divided by 2 times a, so 2 times 3 is going to give me 6. All right, so let's put some of that together. Let's see here, that's going to give me 6 plus or minus the square root of 24, also divided by 6. And I'm going to simplify this, so I know 24 will break up into 4 times 6, so that's going to give me, let me move over here, 6 plus or minus, I'm going to take the square root of that 4, so that's going to give me 2 square roots of 6 all over 6. Now a couple of ways to simplify this, you could break them up and simplify it a little bit more, but I'm going to say that 2 goes into all 3 of these numbers right here, so you only want to simplify if something will go into all 3 numbers. So that's going to give me a 3 plus or minus the square root of 6 over 3. And I'm going to leave my answer just like that. Okay, again, a couple of different ways that you could simplify that one, but that one works out just nicely. All right, we didn't do absolute values this year, so there will not be a question like number 12 on there. You can take that one off. Let's write omit on that one. All right, on number 13, I'm starting with a square root. So to get a square root off of something, I'm going to square both sides. So I'm going to do that to both sides, and that's going to leave me with x squared plus 6x, and then minus 12 is equal to 4. All right, so I'm going to bring that 4 over to the other side. That's going to give me a minus 16 right there. And so I need two numbers that will multiply together to give me 16, and that would subtract to give me 6. So let's see here. I think I can factor this one. All right, so this is going to be x, and I'm going to factor 16 into 8 and 2, and I need to have a positive 6. I'm going to do a plus 8 and a minus 2. All right, so x plus 8 equals 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. So I'm going to get that x is equal to negative 8, and that x is equal to positive 2 over here. Now these are the ones that we need to check for those extraneous answers. So if I plug these back in, then I will end up right there with the square root of 64 minus 48 minus 12, which gives me the square root of 4, which does give me 2, so that one's going to check out. And then same thing with the 2. That's going to give me a 4 plus 12 minus 12, which again gives me the square root of 4, which does check out to be 2. And we'll start with number 14 on the next video.